What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Super Progressive. I am so stoked for this upcoming interview because if you talk to longtime fans of underground music who really know their stuff, our guest is one of the most respected DJs and producers in the underground. And today we are joined by Harry Lemon. How are you doing, man? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, William. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm really looking forward to this talk.
Yeah, it's going to be great. How we got connected was, through a couple of our followers were requesting an interview with you. And then you have an upcoming set on Saturday with the guys that I consider my Jedi masters in progressive house music history, the guys at Progressive House Classics, Jay, Wasim, and Marcus. And you're going to be doing a live stream for them on your Twitch account. Are you
Yeah,
stoked for the show?
yeah, I'm really stoked. It's always like, playing vinyl is not a thing that one does regularly anymore. So I'm always a bit nervous, which is good. It's that it creates tension and also what am I going to play? Because I've been playing quite a lot of classic streams, especially like over 2 years ago when this whole pandemic thing started. And when I started streaming, I only had turntables. Well, I had one. I had to borrow one from my friend Deacon Cross, and so I had like 10 episodes times 2 or 3 hours with classics. So yeah, another one for this weekend, but I always want to keep it fresh, so I'll have to dive into my records and see what comes up.
Definitely. Here's the flyer. And one question I had for you that I think you'll have a good perspective on because you stream to Twitch often is I always get curious. Obviously, the live streams may not match the energy of a live club and what you receive from a dance floor dancing to your music. Like, there's
Mhm.
nothing that will ever replace that. But is it cool to, in other ways, potentially have a more intimate relationship with the audience over a stream as you're performing due to the fact that people can comment and you can see people talking with each other and reminiscing with each other. And you're also probably getting repeat viewers that come back to each stream.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been wonderful. When I started streaming, all I wanted to do was just play music and just play. And it happened. It so happened that I obtained a camera before the whole thing started, and I was like, why not use it? So I did a few at the start, and at first I was streaming on Facebook, and then it moved over to Twitch, and I did it weekly, and now it's once a month. But yeah, we it was a way to stay sane during this whole period, and it was really a get together. We would forget about everything, and I specifically well, I let people know that this is all about music and fun and hope and looking forward to better days, and that's what it has become. And but to me, it really felt like playing live. Of course, I was playing live, and but the chat room was full of love and people really reacting to the music and also the images that I put on screen. I tried to make it into an entertainment show because at the time there was no entertainment. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go to a club. You couldn't even go to the movie theater and all these things. So, and and that's just my opinion, but I don't think television has been interesting for the at least for the past 10 years. So so then you have this thing, which is streaming, and it helped me and it helped others, and I always ended my streams with "Stay sane." You know, and I never told people to stay safe. I always told them to stay sane, because that's what counts the most. And yeah, I've really been enjoying it. And it really feels like a live gig, and I'm exhausted afterwards. And it's a lot of work too, because I start when I always stream on Wednesday, so I start Tuesday, then with the playlist and the imagery and the cameras, and then the stream itself, and then the day after I have to clean up again, because then I have to work on productions and remixes all in the same space. And as you can probably see behind me, there's a bit of green from my green painted wall. So I really had to be inventive and creative to get all to get to that point where it became entertainment and not just a DJ playing, you know. So yeah, I'm very grateful that that people tune in for a thing like this, you know. So yeah.
I kind of have like a similar experience in terms of connecting with a community during the pandemic, because during the beginning of Corona was the time that I first had joined Progressive House Classics, the Facebook group. And it was so eye-opening to see not only the music being shared, but what was even more impressive and more interesting to me was how dedicated the members of the group were to the music. Um, and it almost reminds me, I never got to experience this, but we were talking about it yesterday, and with all the research we've been doing about Global Underground, those, when the internet was still very young, those message boards, like the Global Underground message board, seemed to be the place where the community all came together online and talked about the newest music coming out, everything going on in the scene. And while there's still not that message board, which bums me out, there are still groups like Progressive House Classics that kind of achieved the same thing. So I'm very grateful for them.
Yeah, yeah. I, I I did realize that the Progressive House Classics group on Facebook was really the successor to the Global Underground Forum. I think if you would ask people who were there, and there's many people now, I think 13,000 or something like that. Uh, I guess a lot of them would say, "Yeah, I was there on the forums and stuff," you know. And especially for progressive, well, yeah, I think for progressive house music, uh, they've always been there's always been like these diehard fans, you know, and you can it's still reflected in on the Facebook page, but in a nice way. You know, it's not. It's they're still very uh, well. Now, of course, you got this melancholy element from looking back in time, and so you do see the global underground's CDs popping up every time with a different opinion by a different poster. Uh, but um, but yeah, it's a really nice group, and I remember when I came back to social media, because I've been away for a little bit. When I came back, they welcomed me with open arms, and I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, and it's funny because many people who are in that group have no idea that there are producers in the group and DJs, or maybe they're heroes. And so when someone posts something, like for instance a track that I did, and then I give it a heart or a like, or I say thank you, and then the reaction is like, oh my god, he's here. And then someone else says, well, Harry is here every day. you know but it's fun. It's a nice community.
Yeah, it keeps like this, you know, progressive music is global music, but they really have a great intimate community there where it's not only music fans, it's not only DJs and producers, but it's a big combination of everyone who's passionate about the music. So super, super hyped for the set coming up. And now we can start, having a chat about everything you've done over your career. And I think a great place to start is your release of Model 8. And I'm going to pull up a picture here because I was doing my research last night. And
Right.
obviously, we'll talk about your inspiration for the track. But what struck me as so interesting is Model 8 is one of the first tracks you've ever released. And what I'm looking at, this is from Discogs, is
Yeah.
4 different colors of the release. And this is one of your first releases. So my first question is, why, like, what inspired you to come out with these different colors of the records, and how were you thinking about this release artistically?
Well, um, it was my second release, but it was the first one that I produced myself. So the first one, called Touch Somebody, was something that I did in another studio because I didn't have the gear equipment to make music. So I went into the studio with someone else who was basically a hardcore gabba producer, but he did liked what I came up with, and then I decided to hand it over to someone I admired, which was someone Ronald Molendijk, who was the resident DJ of Nighttown at the time, big club, and he also had a label, Basic Beat, which also later Basic Energy. So I I had him have a listen, and it was like, we want to release this, so but um, but Model 8 came after that, and that was something that I I made it in one night, basically, both sides, and it was initially meant to be a remix for the Tellurians, the Navigator. Some people know that record. And after I finished it with the samples in it, um, the owner of Seesaw Records, which it was meant for, he didn't contact me for 4 months, and then I was like, well, then I will just release it by myself. So I took out the samples, and it became Model 8, and then I made the Lemonade remix, which became the most popular one version. But um, I really made it as a track for the club where I was playing, Nighttown. I had my own techno basement, and I wanted to just make this so I could play it from a cassette tape at the time and see what the react, see if I could get away with it with my first thingy, you know. And that's how it started. But yeah, it became big, and the colors were, they were pressed in Belgium, and it so happened to be that the factory had all these colors. They put paint in the vinyl, so I could choose, and the first one was red, and then the second pressing became, I think, clear white and marble and a few more. Yeah, the marble one is nice, but also we also had a regular black ones. So yeah, and a few years later, when Richie Hawtin was my guest in Nighttown, um, he played there, and yeah, there he is. That's what he looked like at that time, and that's what I looked like at that time. He really looked like Stickman at the time, but yeah, he pulled out all the colors of Model 8. He collected them. So, and then I got a really great compliment because he told me, he said, "Well, Harry, what you did to Model 8 is what I tried to do with Spastic." And I was like, "What Spastic is, you know?" So that was a great compliment. Yeah.
That's such a cool story. One thing I'm thinking of, so I understand the function of the track, which is like you're in the club DJing, and you're like, I want I want this track for this time, and you're thinking conceptually how it all fits in. What were
Mhm.
some of, when it came to the sound of the record, what were some of some producers that influenced you on that?
Well, at the time when I played at my techno basement night in Nighttown, uh, the, the the hot tracks at the time were Spastic, was Robert Armani, Circus Bells, Ambulance, and big drums. Um, and what I tried to do with Model 8 was just give a sort of how do you say that, like this is the night, and this is the soundtrack of my club, and that's what I try to do, and just for fun, and then just play it, and but yeah, and but I'm still very proud of it, and the thing is, you really hear. Uh, 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 I'll tell you a funny story. When I was a kid, like when I was like 7, 8 years old, I lay in my bed crying one night, and then my mom came to me and she said, "What's wrong? Did you have a bad dream?" And then I said, "No, I'm just so scared that when I grow up, all music has been made. I cannot think of any tunes in my head because everything has been made." That was really a big worry for me as a
Pressing
7 year
problems
old.
for a 7 and 8 year old. Yeah.
Right, right. It's the normal thing to worry about, right? So so when I had my when house music was introduced many years later, I was like, I can now make music without any melody at all. So I can just make something that is not musical, because house music was made by non-musicians, which I was. So when I made Model 8, I was like, oh my God, I did it. I made something that has no melody, which is almost ugly in a musical way, but it isn't because it's house music, but or techno, whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, when I made Model 8, I also made another track called Lemon Funk on my own label that I started called Rise and Shine Records, which was all sunshine and happy. And I made a funk record because I started as a funk and disco DJ in the 80s. And so I had a wish, like, I want to make this kind of music. And so they both came out within a few months of each other. And so I was like, okay, I'm done. That's it. I've made a record. I made 2 records, and now I can rest and focus on other stuff. That was my goal. I mean, when you grow up and you have records of your heroes, and then all of a sudden you have your own record, it was like, I kept sniffing at it and feeling it and touching it and looking at it. So yeah, that so that's how I felt about Model 8. Like I finally made something that is not musical, but it's good in some way.
Totally. That's such an awesome story. And what what strikes me as so impressive is that, just looking back at that time, vinyl was the medium which this music was experienced. And that may sound obvious, but how music is made on vinyl is so much more different than how music is made today. And I think about how these initial records mean so much to you and so much to other producers because of how difficult it was to get a record pressed, in terms of the levels of quality control and tiers that your track had to pass through, from the record label to the distributor to the record shop to the record buyer and the record seller at that record shop. It's so different from today, where producers at home can directly upload their music to streaming services and have it there for everyone to enjoy. It's just a very different time, and creates such a different dynamic in terms of your relationship to the music. And I think that plays a lot in terms of how people have such heavy nostalgia for, it's one of the reasons why I think there's a lot of nostalgia combined with this era.
Yeah, well, I think the best thing about vinyl is that it's tangible. You can touch it, It's an object. It's a thing. You know, you can even when you look at it, you can see the break. You know, you can see what the busy part is. You can, you know, you can recognize music by the grooves. You know, and but it's also something that you just own. And of course, with CDs, it's the same thing. It's a physical object, and that's a big difference. But yeah, at that time, um, the you know, yeah, it had to go through A&R and label managers. But of course, it was different in the sense that before house became so big, like before 88, 87, the music business was owned by the major labels. So now we had small labels, independent labels that could press their own records. And that was the big, well, it was big at the time, you know. So you didn't have to go through Sony or CBS or whatever to present your music. And so but of course you had to make the music first, and not everybody now you can have a laptop and make anything you want, but at that time you had to have gear, you had to have synthesizers, keyboards, drum machines, something to record it on, like a digital audio tape recorder, or you know, all those things. You had to buy big expensive monitors, and now it's so much easier and cheaper. Anyone can make music. And I wouldn't say that today is worse than then, because even at that time when we were going through the records in the record shop, we were like, how can anyone press this? This is awful. You know, but so you can have, it's a thing today, but it's still it was also a thing back then. You know, it was like, oh my God, you know, how and yeah, so but of course there was less of it now. Now, I mean, the music was really presented to you by the people who bought the records that came into the shop, and then you could choose. And if we had like 10 titles, you had to order it again and wait a week or 2 weeks or sometimes months to have a repress. Or sometimes you were just unlucky and it got never repressed. But yeah, that's a big difference between those days and now.
Yeah, I think when I think of maybe the early 90s ecosystem that I'm learning about in underground culture, there's two pillars that I've become really fascinated with what goes into a local scene. On one hand, you have the record shop, which is like the community space where outside of the club, this is where producers, clubbers, DJs come and share information and share stories, and that's where all, conversations happen and all of that great stuff. And the other thing is the DJ residency, where that community then goes and experiences the music more or less at a couple of the same clubs with a couple of the same DJs at the helm. And it really, to me at least, created really strong scenes around the world when those two things were in good balance. I'm really curious to learn about your residency at Nighttown. The first thing I want to ask is what what were the different, did you have one night? Did you have one sound? What were the different nights that you were DJing? What was your schedule like as a resident DJ?
So when I before I started playing in Nighttown, I threw my own parties, and what I would do is ask uh, well-known DJs to play at my party from the big clubs like Nighttown, and that was a way to get discovered, because that was the only way they would ever hear you, you know. So, or at least you'd hope so. But the thing is, I was asked back as a resident DJ. And one night I was in Nighttown, and I was close to the DJ booth, and I got a tap on my shoulder, and it was like, "Hey, do you want to be a resident DJ here in Nighttown?" I think I never danced that hard in my life. At that moment, it was like, yeah, that's a dream come true, right? So, so when I started doing that, first it starts with just a one-off, to see if you're up for it, because it's a big club and with many people in it, and see if you can hold the dance floor. And so I had a few tests, and eventually I got my own Friday night, and I was also the substitute for Saturday nights. Then I got my own Saturday night at the basement, which was being built at the time. So there was like a techno basement that was on Saturday, but also Thursday nights at the basement was techno basement, and it was always filled to the rim. And sometimes I played at Sundays as well. There were weeks that I played from Thursday till Sunday, and like every day for 6, 7, 8 hours. And I just left my records over there, behind the curtain. And so I never took records home, or I added a lot of records. By the time I got my records back, there were a few more cases added. So yeah.
No, really cool. And what was it like to be able to DJ? It sounds like you'd have guests come through, but mainly it's you DJing to your crowd. Can you talk a little bit about the relationship that you get to build with a consistent dance floor made up of more or less the same people each week? Because I find I love when parties can accomplish that intimate atmosphere, and I love going to clubs in whatever cities I'm living in, whether it's New York, Chicago, or LA, finding those spots where you do get to run into familiar people and build relationships just around the music in the club.
Yeah, you did build a relationship with the people who went there. Of course, you had like this. There were only like 3 DJs in Nighttown at that time, so we just had a rotation, and we people had their own favorites, but it was never like this one is so much worse than this guy or whatever. It was always we were really a team. And the great thing about a resident being a resident DJ at the time is you could play with the audience. You could because you cannot play the same thing every week, so you had to really be inventive and creative. And because you play for at least 6 hours every night, so but the great thing about it is that you could also create your own club hits. So you could really, what they would call, break a record. So sometimes when you had like a record that you would really like and you knew it was going to be big or well received, you would play it sometimes 2, 3 times a night,
Wow.
and then close with it as well. And as I was selling records in the record shop as well, I knew that the next day they would all come and ask for that record. And that's how a club hit was born. And that was like connected with you, but also with the club. And people still come up to me till this day, like, oh, I remember when you played this and you played that, and after that you played this, and so, and that's the connection that you build with the audience, that they grow with you. You really become this one group of people. And especially in the early days of house, it was you against the rest of the world, because all the normies, they didn't get it.
Yeah. Wow. It reminds me of everything that I've learned about anytime you hear about a good DJ residency. It just reminds me of everything Danny Tenaglia has told me about his time at a place like Vinyl, where the dance floor becomes one big family. And I loved how you said that. And like family in terms of like, you can be like, remember when this happened, or you all have that same insane reaction to a new track dropping, and you get to carry those memories with you, throughout your friendship, because it's such a local based thing. It's so cool. And I
Yeah.
love how you mentioned that it would spill over into the record shop, because the record shop is like the other pillar of, the local underground scene that I was talking about earlier. And you had said in our prep meeting yesterday that in addition to DJing, you also worked at a record shop, and it was really where the scene operated as well.
Yeah, the record shop was the center of DJ culture, really. And the great thing is that you would meet everyone. You would meet colleagues from other clubs, because every other club in my city of Rotterdam, and also from outside of Rotterdam, came into the shop. And but also DJs that were guests in Nighttown, like Kevin Saunderson, or whoever was playing at that in that weekend would drop by. But it was also exchanging. It was interesting because you had the clubs who were more commercially orientated with their music, uh, and there were DJs who were playing funk and hip hop. They were there too. So this coming together inspired us as well as DJs, and you were always like looking, what did he buy? What did he buy, or she, So yeah, it really was the center of DJ life at that moment in time for a long time, very long time.
I was looking around on, doing my research. You're a very, very good writer, in my opinion. And I
Oh,
noticed that you express yourself with writing, whether it's on like your social media channels, but you also have some like amazing blogs. And I love how you articulate the passion, like your passion for music, and how you share your experience with your fans. So
mhm.
is it cool if I read this out for everyone? Because
Yeah,
I think,
sure. I'd like to hear it again too.
yeah, I think it like really uh marries both like the club and the record shop. And it was so interesting of me to learn. But you go Nighttown, where it all began for me. When you'd walk through the entrance, one could already hear the heavy thumping of the new sound called house music. On your left side, down the hallway, was a room for funk and grooves, provided by local DJ hero, DJ Eric Dens de Dens. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Awesome. Walking straight ahead, you had a choice. Techno downstairs at the basement, deliberately kept dark with enough volume to make you move without dancing. Or you'd open the door to the main hall, which fitted 1,200 plus punters moving to house music. The sound was so heavy and dense that the turntables had to be attached to the ceiling with chains. The SLs had elastic bands connected to detached floating platforms. It was almost an impossible task for any guest DJ to play here. Same thing downstairs at the basement. Thursday nights at the basement were legendary. I invited an unknown DJ called Tiesto, who worked with me side by side at the record store, to come and play, which he did. He didn't look up at the crowd, shy as he was, and he mixed the whole set with his headphones on, as it was almost impossible to hear the monitors because of the room's volume. Armin was a regular there too, as he confessed to me years later. Told me he was too young to get. Told me he was too young, but got in anyway. Glad he did. This is so amazing to read, to think of how local such, just how local this scene was, and the amount of talent that would emanate from it. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. It really everything starts as a local scene, you know.
Yeah.
So um, that's why it's so important um, to be connected with people, and they don't even have to represent your own style or preference for music. It's just, but like Tiesto worked in another record shop first in city Breda. I think the Tiesto fans know that town
Awesome.
very well. Yeah, and afterwards he went to work at the Basic Beat record store, and that's him on the left. And I tagged him on Facebook, but it got untagged every time because I don't think people want to see him smoke anymore.
Well, we won't be tagging him in this, so don't worry about
No,
it.
no, no, better not. And Eric Denzer Dance is on the other side. He passed away 3 years ago.
Oh man.
It was which was he was my best friend for a long time, and but he played uh, funk and grooves and rare grooves and all this slow stuff, and we made a record together as well, a few records as Mi Mochila, which means I think my handbag or my rucksack or whatever, some silly thing. Um, but yeah, that was the record show, the Bass Beat record show, and we were side by side, the three of us, like every weekend, every Friday, mostly Saturdays, and as you can see, we had a lot of fun. Yeah. And yeah, of course, later I had my Bandung label, and Armin was asked me first to join in together with Marcus Schultz to start a label and be a DJ at the Armada thing. And then Armin told me that he was at Nighttown in front of me checking the records, and as a 16-year-old or something like that. So yeah, it was interesting to hear.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that pic was so amazing, and thank you so much for sharing with me that you had posted that, because I think a lot of people are going to enjoy seeing that. Now, for the progressive heads, there is a mix album that I've learned from them that you did, that is one of the most beloved in the history of that epic, like the epic history of mixed compilation albums, and that is Inner Sanctuary Inner Sanctuary Sessions. Now, the thing I noticed first about this this mix CD compared to what I've been listening to on Global Underground and Renaissance is the fact that you produced or remixed every single track in the mix. So it's you as a producer, you as a DJ, it's the total package. Now, was that like production? Was the fact that you used all of your own productions and remixes, was that intentional, or was this more of just a creative outlet for your music that you wanted to do?
No, it wasn't intentional. I just happened to be very productive at the time. And so when all these tracks were finished, I was like, I might as well make a compilation out of it, and make it like this concept album in a sense of I didn't even promote it as all made by me or whatever. I just, it's just the Inner Sanctuary sessions. And
On the back of that, I don't mean to cut you off, but on the back of the album, I'm like, wow, the track listing, it's just the track with the original producer. Like there's no like at the end of the track, it's no like Inner Sanctuary mix in parentheses. I thought that was like super cool and classy. I saw that.
I never thought about that, but yeah. Yeah, it was just very free flowing. Like, I got these tracks, let's do something with it, let's have a nice photo session, put my face on it and just send it into the world. But yeah, I started the Inner Sanctuary sessions as a 6-part 12-inch series. And by the time I got to number 4, which was New York, New York, which got licensed to Bedrock, then I was like, well, I'm done, So the 5 and 6 never came out, because if you look at the 12-inch, it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I would cross them, but it stopped at 4 or 3 really, because 4 became a Bedrock release. So and then I got all these remixes, and it was just I finally, after all these years, music production, I found a sound that I really liked, and they called it progressive, but I didn't care what they call it. It was the sound uh, of that time, which I liked. And what I liked about progressive at that time is that you could do anything. It wasn't about melodies. It wasn't about this or that. It was just, it took all good points of dance music and put it all together. And it was tribal, it was breaks, it was techno. I mean, New York was a Bedrock release, but Carl Cox wanted to release it as well on his label. And if it came out on his label, I would probably be a techno guy, because the people and press label you. You don't do that yourself. At least I don't. But after all these remixes, and I still there were still some tracks that were left out of on the album because there wasn't enough room. A CD only has 74 minutes per side, so I had a double album, and that was it. So I had to, you know, I had to let a few go.
Another thing I noticed about the tracks are there's like a consistent name for a lot of the mixes, and that's Inner Sanctuary Mix. What was that to identify that it was part of this mix, or what was your reasoning for that?
Well, more at first it was like a personal thing, like inner sanctuary. It's like a soul thing. It's a thing inside of me, but it also became a sound, and it became a sort of recognizable sound, and that's why I put that on there. And sometimes you just stick to that because it really sounds nice,
Yeah.
and but to me it also had meaning. So I was like, why not? And it wasn't every time because there's lots of Lemonade remixes, Heavy Lemon remixes, Heavy Lemonade remixes, but also a lot of Inner Sanctuary remixes. So yeah, I just liked the sound of it, and it became a sound eventually.
It's interesting you say that, what you said about like the personal connection to the name Inner Sanctuary, because one aspect of progressive music to me is that it evokes emotion, and it's like on a dance floor with a DJ with a great sound system, the response, whether you're feeling it or you see someone else, is often of like spiritual caliber almost. There's such like a internal emotion involved, and that's evoked from the music. You kind of like, you strike me as someone who, when it comes to your approach to being a professional musician, like the music comes first and the music is the most important thing. Is that, how do you balance that with the ever changing pressures that come with music coming in and out of favor, and just the commercial pressures from the industry in general?
Mm, I don't know. It's I my intention has was never to be a musician or someone who makes records. I've always been a DJ. So the dance floor is what I'm always focused on. And if it has a nice melody whatsoever, that's fine with me. I have those tracks as well. But to me, it's a spiritual thing. Uh, it really is, especially playing, but producing in a way is too, because you create something out of nothing. There's nothing, and you start somewhere, and all of a sudden it becomes a thing, and then it gets sent into the world, and then people enjoy it or not, or they hear it or they don't, they dance to it or they don't, but then it's done, and then to me it's on to the next thing. And I've always seen myself as a DJ who happens to have a talent for producing tunes, and sometimes I never call myself a musician. Maybe that's because of the story that I told you earlier about the 7-year-old. Like, it's all, you know. I often say that I make variations on a four to the floor beat, and that's what I do. And if people like that, that's fine. Like, for instance, when I was with Armada and I had my own label there, I also did some touring with Armin. And Armin, of course, is a different sound. It's trance. It's different. It's more melodic. It's faster. And I remember that it didn't really feel right with me. I was like, this is I started noticing that I started making music l- that went to trance. Not There's nothing against trance, nothing at all, but it drove me away from the sound that I really wanted to make. Um, and if I didn't have that feeling that about it, I would probably be s- commercially much more successful than I've ever been if I took that road. Um, but I'm always like, if it doesn't feel good, then don't do it. And I'm also like, I don't need to make music. If I don't produce for 6 months or a year, I'm fine with that. When it comes, it comes. And sometimes I'm very productive, and sometimes I'm not. And then there's other things. There's life and all other stuff. I like so many different things. So music has never been that thing that I needed to do. I did have that at the start, because then it serves some sort of a purpose, like getting noticed and all this, and you know but yeah, to me, it's all a very spiritual thing, almost uh, shamanistic to me.
As the world is opening up and like DJing gigs are able to happen again, I see you have an awesome gig with Anthony Papa, one of my all-time favorite DJs,
Yeah, mine too.
coming up. Like, yeah, so awesome. Are now that you're able to get back in the clubs and the underground worlds coming back to life after the pandemic, are you feeling inspired in any ways right now, or new inspirations?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because as I told you, I am a DJ.
Yeah.
I miss playing when I cannot play. I miss it, and I don't care where it is, but I just want to play. But yeah, Dublin has been. Uh, we've been looking forward to that gig like 2 years ago already. It got postponed twice, and now with the people that are always in the stream, in the chat group, many of them are coming from Spain and other parts of the world. And yeah, it's going to be glorious. There's a bar in Dublin, and it's called the Hairy Lemon.
Oh, no
And
way.
yeah, yeah. And so we all decided to go there for a meet and greet before the gig.
Oh, that's
Or
amazing. Oh,
yeah,
I wish I
before
could
the
go.
gig
That
or a day before the gig. Yeah, Hairy Lemon. And I told him I would grow a beard, which is a lie because I cannot grow a beard. And maybe I'll get some, I don't know, leprechaun add-on beard, something like that.
is so funny.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's a small venue, but I like that especially because it's yeah, it's just I'm not even thinking about playing. I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about meeting all these people.
Yeah, yeah, that's so
And
awesome.
yeah, and I know that the night will be grand, but yeah, I'm so looking forward to it. Yeah.
I'm so stoked for you. That sounds like such a special experience. I love the meet and greet aspect before at Harry Lemon. That is hilarious.
It's funny, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so something that didn't even come up in our conversation yesterday really showcases how new I am to this world of progressive house. And I always fall back on the fact that I was 2 years old when when some of this music was going down. I was literally born the year Model 8 came out, I
Wow.
think. Was it wait,
Awesome.
what year? 1990,
Model 8,
1993? When it was
1993.
Model 8? Yeah, okay, I was the year after in 1994. But
Mm.
we didn't even talk about your release on Bedrock, Lose Control, that I'm doing my research and I see is voted the best Bedrock release ever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he didn't even bring it up. Like, he's such a modest guy, but also it's like, I'm like, oh my goodness. So I was listening to it last night. Freaking amazing. And I just can't even imagine, like, to me, Bedrock is just like the pinnacle of everything. And
Mm.
so was that cool for you when you saw it got that distinction, or was it just even a cool time when that record was out ripping on the dance floors?
Well, at that time, Bedrock was already the pinnacle, you know. So that
Yeah.
was everyone in progressive really wanted to be on Bedrock, and so uh, John Digweed heard it and was like, "Oh, can I release this?" And yep. and
Yeah.
then I made another remix, which became the version which was the most popular one, which was more of like a withheld beats,
What's the
more.
name of that version? Just so I
I
know.
I I I don't even know. I
Oh
guess
yeah, I'll
Lemonade
find it out.
remix,
Yeah, yeah.
or maybe it's probably called the In the Sanctuary
Oh, got it.
mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And the other version was used in a movie with what's this guy's name? Paul. He died years ago. Um, well, maybe I'll think of it later. But yeah, there was a poll in 2019, end of 2019, I think, or beginning of 2020, just before the whole thing went loose. And I was like, I saw that, and I was like, well, it's 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 going to be heaven sent, you know. That's what I think of. And then maybe I don't know. There's so many good records on Bedrock, and then the voting started, and then the voting ended, and I was like leaps ahead of everything everyone else. I think Paul Folder got second, and Heaven Sent was two or three. I don't know. When I met Nick Muir last year at a gig at Amsterdam Dance Event, uh, I told him uh, like you know we have the number one and two best bedrock records of all time. I said, and I'm number one, Nick. And he was
So
like, "Oh yeah,"
funny.
but yeah, well, the thing is, yeah, I wear that crown proudly, but the thing is, you know, if you have a poll the next week or a week before or this year, it's going to be a whole different list altogether, you know. So and I don't think you can put um there's not there's nothing like this is the best or this is best. Is all personal preference and memories and all those things that are attached to music. So I'm aware of that, you know, but still I hope they won't have a poll for the next 20 years, and so I can wear that crown and brag about it, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that is so great. When when you look when you look back, you know, from like the current day just all the way back through the career. And I know this might be hard for DJs to do. You're performing so much in so many amazing places around the world. But are there any memories, memories of club nights or traveling for you that really stick out to you when you reflect upon your career?
Yeah, well, it's big things and little things. Um, for example, when I played Ministry of Sound in Taipei, they welcomed me with a box of lemons with an 8 on it, you know,
That's
which
amazing.
and that's something I will never forget. I brought a few lemons home, not the whole case, of course, but you know, I don't have it anymore. But things like that, but also I had great gigs in Istanbul in various clubs, and there was one open space where I was playing. It was like a last minute gig, so they were like, "Okay, do you want? Well, when is it? Well, it's in I don't know, 9 days or something like that." I said, "Well, okay." So they started doing the promotion with posters all over the city. And Istanbul is a big city. It's like more than 17 million people living there. And so I came there, and it was a beautiful place. But I went to the hotel first, and then I came to the venue. It was open air. It was beautiful, like this old Roman, how do you call it, Colosseum type of thing.
Like an amphitheater coliseum
And
type of thing.
that's the word I was looking for. And when I came on, it was like 3,000 people, and the first 10, 12 rows were all girls screaming and throwing clothing. Let's say it like that, like intimate clothing at me, which was very funny, you know. And it, that, those are things you will never forget. And progressive was really popular at the time, especially in places like Istanbul, because I heard that when Armin would play there the week after, there were like 10 tickets sold or something like that, which is, uh, uh, it's ridiculous when you think about that now. It would never repeat again. But and there's so many great gigs. I played um, mm, not far from the pyramids in Egypt, and then 2 days later I played in Hollywood, which was to me just crazy. They're both mythical places, really. You know, there is a resemblance in my mind, like this mythical place called you see the Hollywood letters, but sleeping next to the pyramid all lit up is not quite the same experience, but you know, but it's things like that. But also playing in a club in Jakarta, great club. It was open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they said, "Well, Harry, if you play, if you see the lights go on, then that's okay. There's nothing wrong. But what they do is they bring out the dead."
Oh my gosh.
I felt like I
Like people
was,
that died in the club?
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. That they would take them outside, and yeah, crazy things, you know. Um, yeah, so to me, this whole DJ thing, I'm always so grateful that I can that people pay you to visit these places. I can still not wrap my head around that. I'm glad they do, and then they should, but it's still, uh, it's yeah, very grateful for all that.
One thing that had me dying yesterday during our prep conversation was you went to Greece and you were given a Greek name.
Yeah, I had many great gigs in Greece, especially Thessaloniki, and I they were best friends, and it was like coming home. And one of my friends said, "Eddie, you have to marry a Greek girl and become Greek, and you belong here." And I was like, "Well, who did you have in mind?" But I did have a Greek girlfriend for a little while, but she told me she got the evil eye because she was from the south and they were from the north, and that didn't go together. It was something like that. But yeah, it was great fun. But they, yeah, I got a Greek name. I did get that, and it's Haris Lemonides. Yeah, and and when I was in Greece and people, are you Harry Lemon? And I would say, no, I'm Haris Lemonides. I'm the chairman of football club FC Trapezoenda, which is a real football club there. But yeah, that was fun.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah,
man.
I
I
love
mean,
playing in Greece.
those stories are really really amazing, and thank you so much for sharing with them, because I don't know, sometimes I forget that as a DJ there's just so much insane shit that is combined with club culture that you must see and experience, that yeah, those memories are crazy. They're awesome. But
Yeah, yeah. Very
yeah, I
grateful for
mean,
all these moments.
yeah, totally. And I don't have any more questions. We've been going for over an hour now, and I want to be
Really?
considerate. Yeah, yeah, I
Wow.
want to be considerate of your time. But this was really great. If I I don't think I have to wake up too early. I'm in Los Angeles, and I know the Progressive House Classic sets in going to be streamed like at 5 or 6 CET. Let me pull up the flyer. I was just saying I'm going to make sure I'm up for it no matter what, because this conversation has just gotten me in such a mood to listen to your music. It's going to be a vinyl set. Yeah, 7
Yeah.
p.m. CET. But yeah, man, honestly, just thank you so much for coming on the show. This was one of the funniest and most awesome interviews, and the fact that we were able to do it remotely, it's just great. Thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
I really learned a lot, and I cannot wait to share this with everyone. They're gonna love this.
I usually don't look back to my own interviews, but I will make an exception for this one.
Oh no, I appreciate that. I appreciate
Yeah.
that, and we're gonna get it out just before the set, so everyone can watch something, learn something, and get stoked for the
Yeah.
set. So
Yeah, that would be
we're
nice.
super
And
stoked.
yeah, it's also the last stream before the Dublin gig as well. So
Oh, definitely, definitely.
yeah.
You'll have some of your biggest fans there, so I'm super stoked for you.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to see Anthony Papa as well.
Yeah, he came on for our second interview ever, and he came on with the jacket from his New Breed album, that blue
Yeah,
jacket. It was so awesome. He's such a funny guy.
I should have. I still have that shirt that I was wearing on the Inner Sanctuary
Oh
sessions. I
no
should have
way.
worn that. Yeah, I do.
Uh, well, next,
I'll,
hopefully at some point, let me see. Oh, that's amazing. Hopefully at some point we can meet up in person, and we can do another video or something.
yeah,
But
that would
yeah,
be
man.
awesome. You're
Yeah,
always
this was
welcome here, and let's hope the US opens up as well.
yeah, yeah, like come
So
on.
because
Totally.
I miss playing in the States. So let's see what happens, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But good luck with everything. Good luck with the set. Safe travels, and I hope everything goes super well for you. But yeah, thanks again for joining. This was great.
Thank thank you, William. Thank you.